Hello there. This is Jacqueline Powers, and you're listening to MindHacker Radio, your late night indulgence. If you're lying awake right now, this is probably exactly what you were looking for. Not stimulation, not distraction, just company. A familiar voice in your head, keeping you company while everything else finally settles down. Or maybe sleep has been a little elusive tonight, and you thought, I'll just put something on, something calm, something soothing, something smooth, something that already helped so many other people drift off without even trying. I like coming on for you this late at night. It's always the best time to hold your attention when there aren't so many distractions left, when the world feels empty out there, quiet, slow, when the night has that low, slow feel to it. That's when the mind is at its lowest ebb. Not tired exactly, just quiet, less guarded, more open, less busy proving anything. And the deeper into the night you go, the more my voice seems to change. Not because I'm doing anything differently, but because you are. At this hour, the sound of my words don't need to mean as much. It can just flow, washing over you, wrapping around your thoughts like a soft blanket you didn't realize you were waiting for. And maybe this isn't your first time listening to me. You'll know for sure if you notice how natural it feels to hear my voice again. How quickly your attention always settles. Listen for a moment. Do you notice the rain gently falling outside of my window right now? Steady, unrushed. That gentle repeating rhythm that doesn't ask anything of you. It just continues, tap after tap after tap. There's something about rain at night. The way it fills the silence without breaking it. The way it covers over all other sounds. Like a soft, heavy blanket. Makes everything feel a little more soft. A little more private. The rain keeps its own rhythm. My voice keeps its pace. And everything else can fade back for a while. Just you listening and me talking into the quiet hours, getting to know the ones who like to find me here. You know, what I always find interesting is how people arrive here. Not just tonight, but this moment. This exact point where you're listening to my voice, late at night, with nothing pressing you to do anything else. Because if you trace it back, really trace it back, it wasn't one big decision, was it? It was a series of very small ones, innocent ones, barely noticeable at the time. One click, one pause, one moment where you watched just a little longer. One time you thought, that sounds interesting, and followed that thought without overthinking it. And then another, and another. You already made all of those choices. They're behind you now. There's no undoing them, not because you were forced, but because you already decided, already curious, already searching, already drawn in. You didn't stumble here by accident, and I think on some level you know that. You like the way it feels to listen to me. You always have. Every little search term you ever typed, every phrase that caught your eye, every spiral thumbnail, every word that lingered in your attention a fraction of a second longer than the rest. Hypnosis. Deeper. Entrancement. YouTube hypnosis. Control. Surrender. Miss Jacqueline Powers. All those impressions stacking up quietly, imprinting themselves, leaving faint traces that your conscious mind barely noticed, while something deeper was paying very close attention. The algorithm is very good at that, you know. It watches what you linger on, what you return to, what you don't scroll past. It doesn't decide for you. It just learns you, guides you, stirs you, draws a path that feels strangely natural when you follow it. And your subconscious works much the same way. You made little decisions at every step. You chose every click, every moment of curiosity, every quiet yes. And yet, here you are, listening again, aren't you? There's something delicious about that, isn't there? That you can be fully responsible for your choices and still have that feeling as though you've been led. As though something inside you has been guiding you here long before you consciously realized where you were headed. Some people find that exciting, that moment when you notice the effect, when you realize the game has been in motion longer than you thought. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm not pushing you anywhere. I'm just opening a door, leaving it ajar, letting you notice how many times you've already stepped inside this before. And look at you. You're still here, still listening. We both know what that means, don't we now? It does something to you, doesn't it? Feeling good to admit it. Feeling better to accept it. Realizing how much control you already set aside. Not only for me, but for the experience itself. And the feeling of trance. For that soft, magnetic pull towards letting go just a little more than you intended. I'm not telling you to surrender anything. I don't have to. I just point out what's already happened, and I let you decide how it feels to notice. Maybe, looking back, it seems inevitable. I mean, of course you chose this. Of course you ended up here tonight, with my voice in your ears, with your attention turned inward so easily now. Because even when you're not consciously paying attention, your subconscious knows exactly where to lead you. And it brought you here for a reason. There's something I've noticed over the years, something almost everyone who's drawn to experiences like this seems to recognize, even if they're never quite said it out loud. Those little gaps. Moments that don't line up neatly in memory. Places where time seems thinner. Where you know something happened, you just can't quite tell when, or how, or exactly what. Some people tell me they can't remember everything I say, or everything that happens. Once they drift far enough into that quiet space, that soft place between my words, and I always find myself wondering, what about you? Do you ever notice that? Listening, and then suddenly realizing you lost track of a moment, or 5, or more. Not asleep exactly, just elsewhere. Oh, you poor thing, that must be so frustrating. Because if something did happen in that space, how would you even know? If a memory slipped quietly out of reach, if a moment folded itself away somewhere deeper, you wouldn't necessarily notice it at the time. You would only notice later, when you try to replay it, and something doesn't quite line up. And the funny thing is, that doesn't mean anything went wrong. Quite the opposite. Most people who enjoy surrendering to trance, even a little, find those gaps strangely satisfying, convincing, like quiet proof that something deeper was involved. After all, if you remembered everything perfectly, where would the mystery be? Maybe you've drifted away listening to me before, just for a moment, just long enough that my voice kept going while your conscious mind stepped back. You might remember the sound, the tone, the rhythm, but not so much the words themselves. And maybe you remember wishing something like that would happen, that delicious idea of letting a moment slip away, of giving up awareness without having to do anything at all. Or maybe it already did. How would you be sure it didn't? If a certain memory was set aside while you were relaxed, comfortable, focused inward, you wouldn't remember the moment it disappeared. You'd just be left with the feeling that something took place just beyond your reach. And that feeling, it tends to linger. Especially when you already know how easily you drift with my voice. How natural it feels to let me keep talking while you soften, while your attention loosens its grip. And if this isn't your first time listening to me, if something about this feels familiar in a way you can't quite explain, well, there are a few possibilities, aren't there? Maybe it's simply because you've been here before. Another version of this file, another night, another quiet hour where my voice kept you company. Or maybe there's another reason that sense of deja vu keeps nudging you. Maybe you listened longer than you remember. Maybe you went deeper than you recall. Maybe there was another version of this trance experience, one that lingered a little more deeply, spoke a little more directly, held your attention just a bit more completely. If that were the case, you wouldn't have access to the details, would you? You'd just be left with an echo the warmth, the pull, and most of all, the unmistakable enjoyment of listening to my voice. That's the part that stays. Every time you try to remember more than that, it slips away again, leaving behind a soft itch, a quiet curiosity you can't quite resolve. And really, if you don't have whatever it is in your mind is reaching for, you can always listen here, right here, as often as you like. Because even if you can't remember why this feels so good, you don't need to. Your mind already knows. And now, there's nothing left for you to do. You follow the thread all the way here. Let yourself notice what wanted noticing. Let your thoughts circle and then slow and then soften. This is usually the part where people stop trying. Not because they're told to, just because it feels unnecessary. Your body already knows how to rest. Your breathing has found its own rhythm again. And my voice, well, it doesn't need to lead anymore. It can just stay with you, like the rain, still falling, still steady, not asking where you're going next. If sleep comes, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's fine too. You can drift as lightly or as deeply as you like, somewhere between listening and dreaming, between noticing my words and letting them blur. There's a quiet place where effort dissolves on its own. You don't need to hold onto anything you heard tonight. Your mind is very good at keeping what matters and setting the rest aside until later. Or not at all. So let the night have you now. Let the rain keep time. Let my voice fade gently into the background, like a familiar presence you don't need to watch anymore. Good night, or sweet dreams. This is Jacqueline Powers, signing off from MindHacker Radio. Until the quiet hours find you again.